This year, Cade will close the gap enough offensively between him and Luka and be clearly in the same tier. For whatever he lacks in offense compared to Luka, shooting, passing, etc., he will make up for it in defense and rebounding. No reason to believe that he will be a better rebounder than Luka. In fact, there's plenty of reason to believe the exact opposite. So I really don't know where that's coming from. Also, Cade is a good defender, but he's never been great. So yeah, last year, Cade averaged 6 rebounds. And that was a career high. Luka has averaged nearly double-digit rebounds on a handful of occasions. He's a career 8.6. So he's not getting the edge on rebounding. I think Luka is a substantially better playmaker than Cade. Not that Cade's not an elite one. I just think Luka's one of the best playmakers to ever play this game. He's also clearly a better three-point shooter. Like, last year is the only year in which Cade Cunningham had a pretty respectable, I guess the year before that as well, the percentage ultimately amounted to being only a difference of 0.1. So it is basically the same. But like 6 attempts per game at 35.6%, 35.5% the year before, both of those are a mark a little bit below league average. But Luka, meanwhile, for his career, he shoots 35%, but since his 2024 season, 38% on 10 attempts per game. Like, there's really just no competing with that for Cade. It's not even just raw percentage because the volume is also so much higher. Luka's taking double the amount of threes over the last 2 seasons that Cade does over the last 2 seasons while shooting a better percentage. So I don't think Cade will improve enough as a shooter to be as good of a shooter as Luka. Don't think he'll improve enough as a playmaker to be as good of a playmaker. He's not a better rebounder. And I think in order for defense to be the reason you put Cade over Luka or in the same tier as Luka, you need to be not just a better defender, but like a substantially better defender, like an actually outright really good one. Wouldn't shock me if Cade could get to that point, but I wouldn't bet on it happening this next year. Hello everybody, welcome to Little Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel and drop a like on this video. Trying to hit 40k subs over here, so that subscription would be much appreciated. Also, if you did not see in my video on the follow-up for LeBron faking his retirement, Stephen A. Smith Hater Manifesto will be out tomorrow, not today. And if it's not out tomorrow, at the very least, it'll be out by the end of the week. I apologize for the way that rollout has gone. Believe me, I am very frustrated by it too. I really hate when I am like, yeah, let me steer the traffic to this date, and then that date comes and we're not ready. It's just very shitty and vaguely unprofessional. So I apologize to you for that. At the end of the day, I am a YouTuber, and YouTubers are anti ever being on schedule. It's against the rules, actually. But with that said, we're back with Discord hot takes. Might be a little bit shorter of an episode because, unfortunately, the last 2 weeks I have got Discord hot takes out later. Again, YouTubers aren't allowed to be on schedule, but it is coming out today this time, so I'm on schedule this time. But there might be not as many takes in this one as there would be otherwise. But with that said, from Khalid, the Heat don't get enough shit for being mediocre and making poor decisions. While their player development program and coaching are stellar, literally everything else about this team has been awful since the Big Three disbanded. Pat signed a number of bad contracts, and the team was stuck in mid-tier hell. They got bailed out by Jimmy wanting to go there, thanks to Wade's endorsement, and overperformed massively. To add to this, building around Jimmy was very difficult because the team didn't have much worthwhile assets, and the assets the team did have, they had to give away to get rid of the bad contracts. Now the team's been on this multi-year coping streak, and while this summer had some decent moves, the players are talking up the team like they're a contender when they're going to be middle of the pack this year. Miami needs to hit the reset button and go for an aggressive rebuild, though Pat won't allow it because it doesn't fit his personal timeline. It's a very fun way to say he'll probably be dead soon. Or at the very least retired. I can agree 100%. I think what happened with the Miami Heat is Coach Spoelstra became so known for turning shit into diamonds that the Miami Heat organization was like, okay, let's go get a bunch of shit for him to mold into diamonds. And it's like, if he can turn a terrible player into a good one, imagine what the guy could do with a good player. But no, Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and then like Tyler Hero at the very tail end of that timeline, are the only actually good players that the Heat ever really added. Like, the rest of the guys, there was like positive contribution here or there, but for the most part, it is players who were dramatically worse in other circumstances that were just elevated by Spoelstra, as well as Jimmy Butler to some extent. So I feel like it was kind of this cyclical thing, like this self-fulfilling prophecy. This, maybe a better metaphor here is Eric Spoelstra's ability to mold bad players into good ones was a double-edged sword, because then Miami thought, oh, we can just go get bad and cheap players and that'll do the job. It decidedly doesn't do the job. And now in the position they're in, I know there's been some talk from Miami's players about like how good they're going to be this year. I don't buy into that shit at all. I'm not saying they couldn't be a playoff team, because in the Eastern Conference, I'm really not that willing to say that any team can't be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. If you told me the Charlotte Hornets were the 8th seed by the time we got to the 2026 playoffs, I'd be like, sure. The East fucking sucks might be the case. They're not contenders. They're really not contenders. The best case scenario for the Miami Heat is Tyler Hero plays like an all-star again. Norman Powell plays like he did like pre-all-star break, where he was averaging like 24 points per game. And Bam Adebayo needs to have a much better year than he did last year. Then you have Kel'el Ware as a guy to bank on development. I think they just gave a pretty good contract to Nikola Jovic, like probably the best contract they could have possibly asked, because I think he's worth more than like, I think it was like 10 or 15 annually. Like there's some stuff there. Andrew Wiggins is a good player. He played pretty good in Miami as well. Like there's enough pieces that I'm like, yeah, you could make a playoff team out of this. But all of the things that I just said could go perfectly to plan, and I still don't think they're nearly as good as the Cavaliers or the Knicks. So at the end of the day, there really isn't an answer besides for the rebuild. And the thing is, like, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero aren't crazy young. Tyler Hero was drafted in what, 2018, something like that. I feel like he's like 26, 27 years old. How old is Tyler Hero? He is 25, born in January, so he'll be 26 by the end of this next coming year. And then Bam Adebayo's at least 27. He's at least, yeah, he's 28, birthday in July, so he'll be 28 basically this entire damn year. So it's not like, I don't mean to suggest that they're old, but they're also not really young either. This isn't like, oh yeah, we can take 5 years to develop this team properly. I don't think you have the time. I don't think you can do that. So yeah, I'm in agreement. They should get more shit for how the organization works. Specifically, Eric Spoelstra, no complaints there. And I've kind of felt for a minute now, and I'm sorry, Miami Heat fans, because this is nothing personal, but I have felt like Eric Spoelstra should move on from that organization for a little bit now, especially after the Jimmy Butler debacle. I would like to see him coach a team that is really talented. Like, he's probably the best coach in the NBA, and he consistently has this problem. But we will move on. From Memphis Propaganda, fuck D'Lo, Rusty should get a bald fade and keep the goatee and start an arts and crafts laboratory? What does that even mean, dog? An arts and crafts laboratory. I mean, I'm pretty crafty. I'm pretty artsy. I'm really good at drawing. I'm really good at building in Minecraft. I have an artistic side that I like to think sometimes comes out in my videos, but for the most part, there's only so much that I can do there. But as for the goatee, the bald fade, I already had that look in the past, and I can tell you quite confidently, brother, it does not suit me. Another take from Khalid, but he won a chip is a cop-out / excuse people use when discussing LeBron's tenure in LA. Sure, a championship is huge, but also let's not kid ourselves. Since winning that chip, all the Lakers have done is get one conference finals appearance and had multiple first-round exits with a playoff miss. While I'm not saying LeBron's tenure in LA was a failure, it wasn't. I do think saying it was underwhelming and disappointing isn't an unreasonable thing to say. But he won a chip, so I guess anything that happens after that is irrelevant. Well, it's not irrelevant, but there is a degree of truth in that, because ultimately, if a move results in a championship, you can't call it a failure. Not outright. You could say it's a failure to live up to expectations. Like, I have made the argument in the past that, like, for the most part, the big three Miami Heat were kind of a disappointment. Like, they should have won in 2011. At the very least, they should have three-peated. Dwayne Wade's injury stuff got in the way, but it's not as though Dwayne Wade was, like, washed by the end of that shit. Like, he still was an all-star. He still was a 20-point per game scorer. Like, not all that much worse than what Kyrie Irving was at the time where LeBron went to join him. So, like, that's disappointing, but you can't call it a failure. The big three wasn't a failure, just disappointing. So, like, I would say in the case of LeBron's tenure in LA, not a failure, but disappointing. But I would also argue that, like, when LeBron went to LA, it's kind of hilarious in hindsight because he's been there, what, 8 seasons now? Jesus Christ, yeah. But when LeBron went to LA, the general consensus, the common talking point was like, okay, this is where he is going to ride out a couple of more years before he retires. Like, a lot of people looked at this and they were like, okay, LeBron is now unserious about winning basketball. He is far more interested, far more invested in being a businessman. LA allows him to do a lot of business stuff that he otherwise wouldn't be able to. And then also just like personal life stuff, like his kid was going to college there. He likes being in LA. It was like a life situation thing as well, not purely business. But like the main talking point was suggesting that a championship was never even coming to LA from LeBron going there in the first place. So I feel like if you looked at it from that point of view in history, like before the championship, there weren't that many people who had championship expectations, but that's of course pre-trading for Anthony Davis. So I get where you're coming from. And like you said, you're not saying it's a failure, but I do think like he won a chip. If we're talking about the broader picture too, then yeah, that's a valid argument, valid excuse. But that does not mean that from 2021 till now, it hasn't been pretty disappointing and kind of a shit show. I think the only thing that makes up for it is that LeBron's capabilities individually maintained, like he was still putting up unbelievable stats and all that shit. But like, you know, not all of it can be blamed on LeBron either. A lot of it is just the organization fucking things up, but then you get into the whole GM shit. So I don't know. You're right. You're right. But also I think you got to consider the perspective broadly, and the perspective before the chip was that it wasn't that likely that a chip was even coming. It feels crazy because LeBron's this good at the age of 40 now, but no one expected LeBron to be this good at 40 back in 2018. It always blows my mind how long LeBron has been a Laker, because he's spent twice as much time with the Lakers as he did the Miami Heat. And then like, he has 11 years in Cleveland. He's going on year 8 now with LA. So it's like there's not even that dramatic of a difference between the time that he spent with Cleveland and his first Cleveland stint was 7 years. So the Lakers will be the longest this season. Well, it will be the longest LeBron was with the same franchise, like collectively, without going somewhere else. Because he gets there in 2018. That's 7 years, so that's already tied for his initial Cleveland tenure. And then now this. I mean, obviously, there's been more injuries. There's been less games played. He played 419 games for LA thus far, and his first Cleveland stint was 548. So still a hefty games played difference, but literally just in terms of a tenure, he will eventually, with this year, have been a Laker longer for a prolonged period than any other point in his career, any other destination in his career. And that's just mind-boggling to me, because when you think of LeBron's career, at least for me, I'm going to think of Cleveland and Miami way more than I think of LA. A lot of the LA stuff has felt more novel than actually all that important. Obviously, in terms of his individual counting stats, there is that, but like I value winning more than anything else, so like there's a dash of a grain of salt there. But yeah, crazy shit. Also, the other thing that's crazy, man, plays small forward just for LA. Small forward, point guard, center, power forward, small forward. Like, this man keeps moving positions on this team. But anyways, we've held on this take long enough. I gotta move on. Udonis Haslem should get his jersey retired the same way Nick Collison got his jersey retired for OKC. I mean, sure. I do think if you have a guy tenured with a franchise for 20 years, that becomes reasonable. But I do feel like we will reach a point in time where this becomes a problem. I mean, the Boston Celtics are already at that point because they were like, let's retire the jersey of a bunch of dudes who averaged 9 points per game next to Bill Russell. Society should move on from Taylor Swift as a musician. I agree. She is Drake for white women. From Apologetic Pasta, I think the NBA could solve a few of its problems by lowering the number of games in the season. I specifically think the NBA should lower the number of games to 66 per season per team. This is playing everyone in your division 4 times and playing the rest of the league 2 times. That allocation of games alone would increase the importance of division and therefore rivalries, which the NBA needs. It could also pave the way to potentially getting rid of conferences altogether by making divisions the most important split. The NBA season is 6 months, so changing from 92 to 66 would mean playing a game every 2.7 days instead of every 2.2 days. Studies have shown that playing games every 3 days drastically reduces the risk of injury compared to 2 days or back-to-backs. The number of games per night goes from 7 on average to 5.5 on average, which makes it easier to watch a wider variety of teams while not drastically reducing the amount of basketball you have to choose from every night. I think this could encourage people to watch teams they don't normally watch. The obvious problem would be 1, old heads whining about history and toughness, and 2, the NBA's revenue. I think the first thing all comes down to how you spin it, and with number 2, I think the league has the money to deal with the change, especially since they could easily keep the number of nationally televised games the same. Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I still think they get a lot from ticketing and concessions and all that, but I think you made a lot of phenomenal points. This one right here, old heads whining about history and toughness. History is one thing. I have a message. Not that it will matter, or not that it will change anything, but for the old heads who are bitching about this, you didn't play at this pace. You did not. You did not move as much as modern players move. Even back in the 80s, when the pace is comparable to what it is today, the actual movement in offenses is dramatically different. Like watching old games, watching even 80s games, I'm going to do a video later this week about the 87 finals that I just watched. Dudes just stand there. Yes, there's a lot of fast break scoring, but in terms of the half court, you don't have dudes running around screens constantly. You don't have it is not the same shit. The average distance that is being ran by an NBA player in today's game is like twice as much as it was back in the 90s and 2000s, and it's still quite a bit of a leap ahead of the 80s. So like, sorry that the game is fundamentally different, but you are comparing apples to oranges. Like, injuries are happening more, not because players aren't tough, because there is more strain on their bodies than there was back then. It's one of the most asinine criticisms because it comes from a place of complete ignorance, but I will move on from that. Overall, I don't really have much to say about your take, Apologetic Pasta. You laid out everything perfectly. Good take. LeBron's best use with Luka would be a supercharged play finisher, scorer, off-ball shooter, and defensive anchor that is a secondary playmaker and ball handler. I mean, is that not what he basically was with Luka last year? Like, if you could lower his time ball handling when it's not directly trying to score is better, as Austin and Luka have more handles to perform than LeBron. I'd want him to, like, at best average 26 to 28 points, but 3 to 5 assists at most, like a supercharged Pascal Siakam. I would say like 24. We got a take for Rudy, but Rudy is not here, unfortunately. Coaches should be allowed to set screens within 5 feet of the half-court line. I mean, that's ridiculous, but I have always kind of liked the idea of coaches. Anytime a coach gets a technical, the opposing coach shoots the free throw. I've always thought that's a very fun idea. And then, like, there's like a huge advantage for like fucking JJ Redick and shit. Like, that would just be really, really fun, really interesting. I know it would break so many things about the game, but just going purely on a what I would enjoy standpoint, that is a very, very enjoyable potential outcome. But anyways, we got another Cade take. Cade Cunningham will be an undisputed top 10 player by All-Star break. The leap he made last year as Detroit's leader, taking them from almost 2 decades of irrelevance to a top 6 playoff seed. I don't know why people do this. Just say the 6th seed. Just say the 6th seed. It's fine. Was the sign we needed that he can finally arrive to his number 1 overall potential. If the Pistons are on pace for 45-plus wins with Cade as the clear offensive engine, he'll firmly land in the Brunson, Ant, D. Mitch tier as a fringe superstar and true franchise player. I think it's this one's more reasonable. Like, if you told me Cade was top 10 by All-Star break, I can get behind that. To say he's on Luka's tier this year, wouldn't bank on it. I wouldn't bank on it, period. All right, we have a political take at the end here, so if you're a whiny little bitch, feel free to click off. From D'Lo's mom's boyfriend, and this will be the last one. The New York Times deserves more criticism than it's getting. I've seen some, but not enough to change anything, for enabling the Trump administration through their headlines. A good number of headlines end in a question or at least a curious tone, even when the thing in the article covers is not in question. Here is a made-up example, but check the New York Times homepage over a few days and you'll see 15 just like legal experts debate if deploying troops to cities is constitutional. This leaves the reader with the impression that maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not saying if it is or isn't, but I'm not writing that for the damn New York Times. The headline should clearly say the most constitutional scholars agree the thing is unconstitutional. If there is a dissenting minority, explore that in the article and give them a fair shake. But their headlines play the fence way too often, even when the answer is clear through the article. In the world of social media, a headline is all the news most younger people consume, and the New York Times is the paper of record. Its name carries weight. By playing the fence, they are intentionally ensuring that most people think that the answer is up in the air, even when the majority of experts clearly say one thing. They don't have to be hostile, just an honest representation of what experts think or the facts and the case. They are enabling. I can agree with this. The New York Post is especially egregious in this department, but I think they've kind of always had like a right-wing leaning to begin with. But New York Times specifically, I mean, they've been criticized for this before, like you mentioned. I think the problem is just kind of debate culture. Like something like whether or not Israel is conducting a genocide is not up for debate if you care about or value like what people who are experts in the field of genocide say. Because pretty much every single genocide scholar, people who make it their life's mission to study the systems that make genocide happen, they all agree. They all agree that it's genocide, like every fucking one of them. But someone on Twitter disagrees, so that means it's up for debate. It's up in the air. And if that is what constitutes something being unsure, something being up for debate, then everything is up for debate. There is no experts. There is no broader consensus. It's just a field of confusion. I think there's this misconception that journalism is supposed to be non-biased or whatever, but neutrality isn't non-bias. Neutrality is just a different form of bias, and it's also impossible not to have bias. And like, hot take, you should have bias, quote unquote, against the military being deployed against United States citizens. That should be something that you stand 10 toes down and say, no, this is unacceptable. The job of journalists is not to just collect the information and a bunch of different people's perspective and then throw it all together into a collage of confusingness. No, if one side has every single expert on their side and the other side is dipshits on X with a blue check that they paid for, then that's not equal footing. Like, there isn't a debate as to whether or not climate change is real. There are scientists who know about it who say that it's real, and there's dipshits who don't know anything about it who say that it's not. And sometimes things are just true and false. It's not always up for debate. And that's actually something we get into a lot in the Stephen A. Smith video about the way that he influenced debate culture in general. The way that people think like human rights are up for debate, that like something like the president deploying the military against United States citizens, that is not up for debate unless you're a fucking crazy person, and you're not a qualified crazy person. So shut up. Straight up, dude. For some reason, we have been conditioned to believe that fence sitting and centrism is real journalism or real integrity. It's not. The truth is the truth. And I know it's not as simple as that necessarily, but sometimes it is. And like, I'm okay with things being up for debate that actually are for debate, but there are things that are not up for debate that are framed as such. It is unconstitutional to deploy the United States military against the citizenry. That is a fact. That is a fact. It is not up to you. It is not up to your decision. It is not up to how you feel about it, you fucking facts versus feeling cunts. I'm not trying to hear it, okay? So yeah, great take from D-Lo's mom's boyfriend. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.